Jake Sullivan gripped the control stick of his small cargo vessel as it approached the Kepler station. The ship was old, patched many times, held together by human engineering and pure stubbornness. 300 years had passed since Earth went silent, and in all that time, nobody in the galaxy cared much about what happened to humans. Jake knew this. He had known it his whole life. The station grew larger through the viewport. It was a busy place, a mixing point where 5 different alien species came to trade goods and information. Jake had made this run 100 times before, bringing medical supplies and food to the scattered human colonies. It was not exciting work. It was not important work. Nobody at the Galactic Council thought about it at all. He pushed the ship into the docking lane. The computer system chirped warnings about navigation traffic, but Jake ignored them. He knew exactly where he was going. As his vessel slowed and maneuvered into the bay, he saw the other ships docked around him. Sleek Vexian trading vessels, massive Krellian cargo haulers, the elegant fighters of the Theran Confederacy, and then his small human ship, looking like a broken toy next to them. Jake cut the engines and sat for a moment in the silence of the cabin. He was 43 years old, born on Kepler Station itself, and he had never seen Earth. Nobody younger than 100 had. The old planet was a name in history books, nothing more. Sometimes Jake wondered what it would have felt like to live there, back when humans had mattered, back when they were not forgotten. He grabbed his manifest and headed down to the docking platform. The air was processed and cold. People moved everywhere, but none of them paid attention to Jake. A Vexian merchant pushed past him without apologizing. A Krellian cargo handler pointed to where Jake should leave his containers without making eye contact. This was normal. Humans were not worth noticing. The trade office was controlled by a Theran named Kess. He was tall and thin, with skin that shifted colors when he talked. He looked at Jake's manifest and made a low whistle, which in Theran language meant disappointment. "Only medical supplies again?" Kess asked. His voice was sharp. "Nothing valuable? Nothing that will bring real profit." Jake kept his face calm. "The colony needs vaccines. The harvesting equipment is failing. I brought replacement parts." Yes, Kess said, waving a hand. "Humans always need things they cannot afford to buy. Your people are lucky the Galactic Council allows you to exist at all. In 200 years, you will be extinct. Then, we will not have to listen to these small requests anymore." Jake said nothing. Getting angry never helped. Anger just made aliens see humans as weak and emotional. He filed the documents and watched as Kess signed off on the delivery. The supplies would go to the colony. The people there would live another month. That was all. He was leaving the trade office when he heard someone call his name. Lisa was waiting by the exit, tall and dark-haired, her face showing the careful expression that all young humans learn to wear around aliens. She worked as a translator and cultural liaison at the station. It was a good job, or at least the best job any human could get. "You came back," Lisa said. "I was not sure you would after last time." "The colony still needs supplies," Jake said. "I will keep coming back until they do not." Lisa walked beside him toward the eating station. It was a small place where humans could buy food and drink without being turned away, though the prices were 3 times higher than what aliens paid. "There is something happening," Lisa said quietly. "The Vexian merchants are talking about something strange. They say there are ships moving in the deep void, ships that are very large. The Galactic Council received reports 2 days ago." Jake poured bitter coffee into a cup. It was probably made from something that was not actually coffee, but humans had learned not to ask questions about food. "What kind of ships?" "Nobody knows," Lisa said. "They come from far away, beyond even the Theran space. The Council is sending investigative vessels, but the Vexians think it is a waste of time. The Vexian leader, the one called Torvin, He said the council is afraid of ghosts. He said there is nothing out there but empty space. Jake took a drink of the bitter liquid. It was cold, which was good. Is it possible? Could there be new ships? I do not know, Lisa said. She pulled out a small data chip and placed it on the table between them. But I found something interesting. In the old Earth archives, there are records of ships that were sent out 300 years ago. Generation ships. Colony vessels built to last for 1,000 years. Jake looked at the chip but did not touch it. Hundreds of ships were sent out when Earth began the expansion. All of them are silent now. All of them have been silent for 300 years. Yes, Lisa said. They are all silent. But what if one of them was not destroyed? What if one of them was just very far away? What if it is only now returning? The idea seemed impossible. Jake had been taught since he was small that Earth was gone, that the old empire had failed, that humans were the survivors of a dead civilization. The thought that something might be coming back from the dark space between stars seemed like a dream. A dangerous dream. We should not talk about this, Jake said, but he picked up the data chip anyway. I know, Lisa said. But you asked me once what would happen if humans could return to power. You asked me what the galaxy would do if we remembered what we were. I have been thinking about that question ever since. They sat in silence for a moment. Around them, aliens talked and laughed and made deals. None of them thought about humans at all. None of them understood that their entire civilization rested on the assumption that humans were finished, that they were just the empty shells left behind by a dead species. The Vexian merchant Torvin, he made a bet today, Lisa said. He said that humanity will not survive another 10 years without aid. He said, we will fade away like old stars cooling down. Half the traders took his bet. Nobody believed humans could do anything at all. Jake put the data chip in his pocket. Maybe they are right. Maybe we are finished. Or maybe, Lisa said, we are about to remember who we are. And maybe the galaxy is not ready for that. Jake left the station that evening and headed back to his ship. As he lifted away from the dock, he looked back at the planet below, at the world that had given humans the smallest corner of space to survive. He thought about the ships in the void, about the possibility that something was returning from the dark. He thought about what it would mean if humans were not finished at all. Behind him, the station faded into the black of space. Ahead, his course was set for home. But somewhere in the vast dark beyond, something was moving. Something was coming closer. And nobody in the galaxy was ready for what would happen when it arrived. The research station horizon hung in the dead space between stars, far away from any major shipping routes or galactic colonies. It was a place where scientists could study things that the Galactic Council preferred to ignore. Derek Chun served as the station commander, a quiet man with gray in his hair and a mind that understood impossible things. For the past 6 months, his team had been tracking sensor signatures that should not exist. Emma Costa stood in front of the main display, her arms crossed, her eyes tired. She had not slept properly in 3 days. The data kept changing, but the pattern remained consistent. Something massive was moving through the void, and it was getting closer to known space. Run the calculations again, Derek said. He was standing at the back of the room, a cup of cold coffee in his hand. I want to be certain before we report this to anyone. Kevin March was the station's chief engineer, a young man who had spent his entire life studying Earth's history. He believed in things that most modern scientists dismissed as mythology. He believed that the old humans had been great before they faded away. Now he was studying the sensor data, comparing it with the technical specifications of ships from the old archives. The mass is wrong, Kevin said, not looking away from his screens. If this were a natural phenomenon, a meteor swarm or a dying star, the mass distribution would be different. These signatures show structure. These are ships, and they are built on a scale that only the old Earth civilization could have built. Emma turned to look at Kevin. Her expression showed doubt, but also something else, something like hope. You are talking about generation ships, about vessels that left Earth 300 years ago. I am talking about exactly that, Kevin said. He pulled up a comparison chart, showing the sensor signatures overlaid with theoretical designs from the ancient Earth archives. The match was close, so close that it could not be a coincidence. These are old, very old, but they are still functional, still moving, still heading toward known space. Derek set down his coffee cup. The cup made a small sound against the metal table, loud in the quiet of the research station. How long until they arrive? At their current speed, 70 to 120 days, Emma said. But their velocity is decreasing. They are slowing down as they approach the boundaries of known space. It is as if they are being cautious, or as if they know what they will find, Kevin said quietly, as if they remember what happened to their colonies. The Galactic Council needed to be informed. Derek knew that. Yet he also knew what would happen when he told them. They would send military vessels to investigate. They would treat the arriving ships as a threat. They would demand answers that the Council did not want to understand. Derek had served on the Council once, a long time ago. He had seen how they operated. They protected the status quo. They protected power. And humans had no power anymore. He made the decision to wait. Wait one more week. Gather more data. Be absolutely certain. The Council could wait one more week before facing the implications of what was returning from the void. Meanwhile, on Kepler Station, Lisa received an encrypted message. It was coded in a format so old that she almost did not recognize it. The code was from Earth, from the days before the Great Silence. Her hands shook as she ran the decryption sequence. The message was very short. It said only two things: a series of coordinates deep in restricted space, and a phrase in old Earth language. Humanity remembers. She copied the message to a secure data chip and went to find Jake. He was in the cargo bay preparing his ship for the next supply run. When she showed him the chip, he read it 3 times, as if the words might change if he was not careful. "This came from someone in the fleet," Jake said. "From the ships you saw in the archives. They are contacting us," Lisa said. "The scattered humans. They are telling us they are coming home." Jake sat down on a container of medical supplies. The weight of what this meant seemed to push down on his shoulders. For 300 years, humanity had been alone, scattered, forgotten. And now something was moving in the void, reaching out to the lost children of Earth. "We need to go there," Lisa said. "To those coordinates. We need to know if this is real. We need to know if help is actually coming." Jake looked at his small ship, patched and broken and held together by will and determination. He looked at Lisa, this young woman who dared to hope that humanity might be more than what the galaxy had decided it was. "If we go," Jake said, "if we leave our posts, we might lose our jobs. We might lose everything." "We will lose everything anyway," Lisa said. "The galaxy is letting us fade." The Vexian merchant, Torvin, he was right. In 10 years, maybe 20, there will be no humans left to remember what we were. Unless something changes. Unless we reach out and touch what is calling us from the dark. Jake made his decision then. He would go. He would take the small cargo ship, the broken vessel that nobody thought was important. He would fly to the coordinates hidden in the message from the void. He would learn if humanity's children were coming home. The first part of the journey took 5 days. They moved carefully, running dark, avoiding the major shipping lanes and the sensor stations of the Galactic Council. Lisa monitored communications the entire time. The galaxy was beginning to notice something strange. Reports came in from distant observation posts. Something massive was moving in the deep void. Something was approaching known space. The reports were fragmentary and confused, but the fear was becoming real. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found a sensor beacon, ancient and nearly dead, powered by systems so old that they should have failed centuries ago. But the beacon was still active. It was still sending a signal, calling to any human who might hear it. Jake approached slowly. On the main display, he saw that the area around the beacon was filled with old structures, abandoned stations, defenses that had been set to sleep for a very long time. Hidden places left behind when the great ships had sailed away. Inside the nearest station, they found records. Thousands of records stored in formats that human technology could still read. These were messages from the ones who had left. Orders about what to do if the ships ever returned. Instructions for gathering the scattered people. Plans for what would come next. Lisa pulled up a video message, one of the last things recorded before the stations went to sleep. A woman appeared on the screen, her face strong and her eyes clear. She wore a uniform that neither Jake nor Lisa had ever seen before, marked with symbols that belonged to an Earth that had ceased to exist. "If you are watching this," the woman said, speaking in English that was old but still understandable, "then our people have survived. Then there is still hope that you remember who you are. I am Captain Susan Hayes, and I command the return fleet. We are coming home. We are coming to find you. And we are bringing with us the power to change everything." The message ended. The screen went dark. And above them, hidden in the vast dark of space, something was moving closer. The return fleet was approaching known space. The galaxy was about to learn that it had made a terrible mistake. The bridge of the lead vessel was silent, except for the soft hum of ancient systems. Admiral Susan Hayes sat in the commander's chair, her uniform bearing the insignia of Earth's old military. Her hair was gray, cut short and practical. Her eyes had seen things that few people in the modern galaxy would understand. She had been awake for 200 years, watching over her fleet through the long dark of space, waiting for the day when they could finally come home. The navigation officer reported that they were approaching the boundary of known space. In a few hours, the sensors would detect them. In a few days, the whole galaxy would know that something was returning. "How many people are awake now?" Susan asked. The science officer checked her displays. 50 million across the fleet, ma'am. The rest are still in hibernation, as planned. We can revive another 100 million when we establish a secure staging area. Susan nodded. The return fleet was not just a military force. It was the largest surviving population of humanity, preserved in the ancient ships that had left Earth when the galaxy was still young. Billions of people, sleeping in cold chambers, waiting for the moment when their species could stand up in the galaxy again. They had left as a civilization trying to spread across the stars. They were returning as survivors, reclaiming what had been lost. The first contact came from a human exploration vessel. Jake and Lisa approached the massive flagship in their small cargo ship, and as they drew closer, they saw the scale of what was coming. The ship was a city in space, kilometers long, bristling with weapons and defense systems. Behind it, visible only as vast shadows in the starlight, were the rest of the fleet. Hundreds of ships, thousands maybe, all of them bearing the insignia of Earth's old government. Admiral Hayes received them in the bridge conference room. She was older than Jake had expected, but her presence filled the space around her. When she looked at them, her eyes seemed to see everything, to understand exactly what these scattered survivors represented. "You are Lisa Park and Jake Sullivan," Susan said. It was not a question. Somehow she already knew their names. "You found one of our beacon stations." You transmitted the confirmation code. You are among the first of our lost children to reach out to us. We are honored, Lisa said carefully. We did not believe such ships could survive so long. We were built to last 1,000 years, Susan said. We have been in transit for only 300. We have half our life ahead of us. But more importantly, we have the knowledge of what Earth was. We have libraries. We have the records of every achievement our people ever made. And we have the power to protect those we find scattered in this galaxy. Jake felt something break inside him then. For his whole life, he had believed that humans were finished, that they were remnants of a dead civilization. Now he understood that Earth was not dead. It had never been dead. It had only been sleeping. Susan led them to a view screen that showed a map of the galaxy. As she spoke, she pointed to different regions, showing them where human colonies had been established, where human genes had been used in experiments by other species, where human worlds had been taken and settled by aliens who had simply assumed that humans were too weak to resist. 300 years ago, Susan said, the Vexians were a minor trading species. Today they control 15% of known space. They did this by taking human colonies and using human resources. The Krellians were nothing but miners. Today they are the primary industrial power in the galaxy. They built their empire on the backs of humans. The Therans were scattered and weak. Now they have a confederacy spanning 200 worlds. How many of those worlds did they take from humans? The anger in her voice was controlled, but it was real. It was the anger of someone who had studied 300 years of records, showing how her people had been treated while they slept. We have laws in Earth archives, Susan continued. Old laws from before the silence. They protect the rights of sentient species. They demand compensation for the taking of resources and territory. They require recognition of historical claims. The Galactic Council has never heard of these laws because they assumed all humans were dead. But we are not dead, and the law still applies. Jake and Lisa watched as the fleet moved closer to known space. Reports began coming through from the Galactic Council observation posts. The Council called for an emergency meeting. The Vexian leader Torvan demanded that military forces be assembled to meet this unknown threat. Other species argued for caution. Some called for hospitality and trade negotiations. But all of them understood that something had changed in the balance of power in the galaxy. When the return fleet entered officially into known space, the Galactic Council called for a formal meeting. Susan Hayes agreed to meet with them, though she did not come in person. Instead, she sent a representation that would be broadcast to all major worlds. The signal reached 10 billion people simultaneously across the galaxy. I am Admiral Susan Hayes, the recording began. I command the return fleet of humanity. For 300 years, we have traveled through the void to return home. We come not as invaders, but as the original inhabitants of systems that have been taken from us. We come not as conquerors, but as a species that was nearly destroyed and has survived. We offer peace to those who wish peace with us. We offer cooperation to those who will acknowledge our rights. But we will not accept that our children are property. We will not accept that our history has been erased. We will not accept that humanity is forgotten. The Council tried to argue that humans had abandoned their colonies. They claimed that 300 years of absence meant that Earth had no legal standing. Susan Hayes responded with documents, with birth records, with the genetic records that proved that human colonists had occupied worlds that now belonged to other species. We do not wish to wage war, Susan said in her statement. But we will protect those of our people who remain. We will reclaim what is ours. And we will restore humanity to its rightful place in the galaxy. The only question now is whether you will accept this peacefully, or whether you will force us to prove that our fleet is more powerful than your entire galactic navy combined. The galaxy fell silent after that statement. Nobody had expected this. Nobody had believed that humans could return with such strength. The Vexian merchant Torvin had made a bet that humanity would be extinct in 10 years. He had been completely wrong. Humanity had returned as a power that could reshape the balance of space itself. On Kepler Station, Lisa watched the broadcast with hundreds of other humans. She saw hope in their faces for the first time in her life. Around her, the alien merchants and traders were discussing the new reality. The galaxy had forgotten humans existed. Now it would have to remember what that meant. The return fleet did not attack. Instead, it positioned itself at the boundary between human space and the rest of the galaxy. The movement was a message. Susan Hayes wanted the Galactic Council to understand that humans were not being aggressive, but they were prepared to defend what was theirs. The message was clear. Back away, or face the consequences. The panic in the Galactic Council chambers was immediate and deep. Species that had been rivals for centuries suddenly wanted to talk about alliances. The Krellians proposed a joint committee to discuss human claims. The Therans offered to negotiate border agreements. But the Vexians, under their leader Torvin, refused to accept the new reality. "This is a trick," Torvin declared before the full council. His voice was sharp and cutting. "These ships cannot be as powerful as they claim. We should assemble a combined military force and remove this threat before it becomes too strong." The Krellians said nothing. They had done too much stealing from humans to risk a war. The Therans also remained silent. They had learned that it was better to negotiate with someone more powerful than to fight them. "The Vexians alone cannot defeat the return fleet," the Krellian leader said carefully. "Perhaps we should listen to what Admiral Hayes proposes before we take military action." Torvin turned away from the council, his expression showing disgust. He ordered the Vexian military to prepare for war. He believed that humans were weak, that they had been scattered and broken for too long. He believed that one decisive military strike could destroy the return fleet and restore Vexian dominance in the galaxy. Jake and Lisa were assigned as civilian liaisons to Admiral Hayes. They stood in the diplomatic chamber of the flagship, watching as the highest levels of the Galactic Council arrived for negotiations. The room was divided down the middle, humans on one side, aliens on the other. Susan Hayes sat at the head of the human delegation, with military commanders and technical experts surrounding her. The Krellian negotiator, a massive being named Krell, presented the Council's position. "The humans are claiming ownership of systems that have been independently developed for 300 years. The infrastructure, the populations, the economic systems built on those worlds now belong to the species, who invested their resources and their lives to build them. You cannot simply arrive and demand everything back." Susan Hayes pulled up a holographic display showing the historical records of human colonization. She showed how humans had settled world after world, how they had built economies and governments and cultures. She showed how the Vexians and Krellians and Therans had gradually moved into those spaces, displacing human populations through economic pressure and military force. "These are not newly developed systems," Susan said. "These are human systems that were taken. The populations were removed or enslaved or merged into other species colonies. The resources were harvested by alien corporations. The cultures were erased from history. This is not a matter of legal interpretation. This is a matter of historical fact." Torvin's representative, a sharp-faced Vexian named Kex, laughed at the presentation. "You have no proof. These are ancient records. The only voice that could confirm them is dead. Your Earth is gone. Your civilization is gone. You are just ghosts trying to claim territory that no longer belongs to you." "We are not ghosts," Susan said quietly. "We are the people that you tried to make extinct. And we have returned to remind you that extinction takes more than neglect. The negotiations continued for 3 days. The Krellians proposed a compromise where human claims would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. The Therans suggested that some worlds could be returned while others would require payment for the improvements made to them. The Vexians rejected every proposal and demanded that the Council take military action. On the 4th day, Torvin made his decision. He ordered a strike force of 50 Vexian warships to attack a human ambassador's vessel as it traveled between negotiation sites. The strike was meant to provoke a response, to show that the Vexians were not afraid, to prove that humans could be hurt. The ambassador's ship was a small diplomatic vessel, carrying only civilian staff. It was defenseless. When the Vexian fighters attacked, they expected an easy victory. They did not expect the human response to be instantaneous and overwhelming. Susan Hayes had positioned a battle group specifically for this possibility. When the Vexian fighters opened fire, human weapons activated. The engagement lasted exactly 47 seconds. When it was over, all 50 Vexian ships were disabled. Engines burned out. Weapon systems destroyed. Hull integrity compromised. Not a single ship was destroyed. Not a single person was killed. The message was perfectly delivered. The return fleet could destroy the Vexian military completely. With less than minimal effort, Torvin's response was to demand that the Galactic Council treat the disabling of his ships as an act of war. He called for the immediate mobilization of all Council military forces against humanity. The vote was overwhelming against him. 12 species voted to continue negotiations. 0 voted to support military action against humanity. The Vexians were alone. In the aftermath, Torvin disappeared from the council chambers. Some said he had fled back to his homeworld. Others said he had been removed by his own government, who recognized that war with humanity would be catastrophic for Vexian interests. Either way, he was gone. The Krellian leader approached Susan Hayes during a break in negotiations. He was a practical being, someone who understood how power worked in the galaxy. "You have made your point," Krell said. "You are stronger than we are. You could defeat any of us individually, and most of us in combination. The question now is what you will do with that strength." Susan looked at him carefully. "That is a very important question. The answer will determine whether the galaxy learns to work with us, or whether we must remind you again and again why humans are not to be forgotten." She turned to face the full Galactic Council. "Here is what will happen. We will establish a human restoration authority to evaluate all claims on worlds that were originally settled by our people. Those worlds will be returned to human control. We will invest in rebuilding human infrastructure and population. Those of our people who wish to remain within other species' territories will be protected by law. Any harm to a human will be treated as a violation of galactic law. Any attempt to remove human rights will result in consequences." She paused, letting the weight of her words sink in. "I am not telling you this as a request for your approval. I am telling you this as a statement of fact. This is what will happen. The question you must answer is whether you will support this transition peacefully, or whether you will force us to impose it by other means." The Krellians voted in favor immediately. The Therans followed. One by one, every species except the Vexians agreed to accept the new order. The age of human weakness had ended. The age of human restoration had begun. Late that night, Jake and Lisa stood on the observation deck of the flagship, looking down at the galaxy below them. The stars were brighter now. The future was clearer, and humanity was no longer forgotten. The restoration of humanity began in the first month after the Council agreements were finalized. Admiral Susan Hayes divided her attention between military operations and the massive work of rebuilding human civilization across the galaxy. She appointed Jake Sullivan as the human ambassador to the Galactic Council, a position that surprised him but that he accepted with determination. Lisa Park became the director of cultural restoration, tasked with recovering and preserving human knowledge that had been lost or forgotten over 3 centuries. The Krellians, understanding that cooperation with humans was necessary for their own stability, agreed to open their archives. They had collected human genetic material over centuries, preserved without understanding what they were keeping. Teams of human scientists began the process of identifying and protecting this material. Some of it could be returned to human genomes. Some of it was evidence of violations that would need to be addressed in later negotiations. The Therans proved to be more cooperative than expected. Their leader, a wise being named Atherin, had studied human history extensively and believed that humans brought something valuable to the galaxy. He proposed a partnership where human and Theran cultural experts would work together to reconstruct the shared history that had been erased. The Vexians remained hostile, but isolated. Torvin had fled to a remote outpost in the Vexian territory and was declaring that the return of humans was the beginning of the end for Vexian independence. Most Vexians ignored him. They understood that war with humans would destroy everything they had built. Better to negotiate, to find common ground, to adjust to the new reality. Derek Chen led the expedition to restore the ancient human. Archives scattered across known space. And Acosta worked beside him, gathering data on human technical achievements that had been lost or misattributed to other species. Kevin March stood in the center of a vast library of Earth knowledge, weeping when he realized that almost everything he had believed about ancient human achievement was true. The old civilization had been magnificent. The humans of Earth had been scientists, philosophers, artists, and explorers on a scale that the modern galaxy had never understood. They found records of human medicine that was centuries ahead of current galactic practices. They discovered human mathematics that had been forgotten and needed to be relearned. They uncovered human ethical systems that had addressed problems the modern galaxy was still struggling with. They recovered stories and songs and poems that had been created thousands of years before the rest of the galaxy had even discovered space travel. "We have been studying the scraps of your civilization for centuries," Atherin said to Susan Hayes during a joint cultural meeting. "We thought we understood human history, but we were looking at ruins. Now I see that we were studying the fragments of something magnificent. The galaxy underestimated what it lost when it forgot about you." Susan smiled. It was a rare expression on her face. "The galaxy will have time to learn what it missed. We are not here to punish the species that forgot us. We are here to help rebuild civilization itself. And we bring with us knowledge that can benefit everyone." She pulled up a technical display showing human medical advances. "This system cures 70% of the diseases that currently affect your species. This technology extends lifespan by 300 years. This approach to agriculture could feed twice the population with half the resources. These are not weapons. These are gifts. This is what humans offer to a galaxy that was willing to learn from us again." The effect was transformative. Species that had been hostile became interested. The Krellians requested human assistance in redesigning their industrial systems. The Therans asked for help developing better medical care. Even some smaller Vexian colonies broke away from Torvin's leadership and requested human partnership. New human colonies were established on worlds that had once been home to humans but were now populated by other species. These were not forced displacements. Instead, humans and other species learned to coexist, to share resources and culture and knowledge. It was slow and sometimes difficult, but it was genuinely cooperative. Lisa stood in a newly restored human archive on a world called Kethrin. which had been settled by humans 250 years before she was born. The building was old, damaged by time and neglect, but the core structure was still sound. Inside, young humans and Tharans were working together to restore human records. They were learning each other's languages, understanding each other's perspectives, building something new that neither species could have created alone. "This is what I hoped for," Lisa said to Susan Hayes, who had come to observe the restoration work. "It is not what I expected," Susan admitted. "I prepared for war. I prepared to force the galaxy to recognize our rights. But perhaps this is better. Perhaps the galaxy will learn that humans are not just a military threat. We are a gift. We are a species that understands cooperation and creativity in ways that violence cannot teach." Jake stood before the Galactic Council to present the first official report of the Human Restoration Authority. The council chambers were filled with representatives from every known species. The gathering itself would have been impossible a year ago. Humans had been too insignificant to warrant full representation. Now, they occupied one of the primary seats. "We have established 14 major human colonies," Jake reported. "We have recovered and verified human claims on 183 worlds. We have partnered with every major species to integrate human knowledge into galactic institutions. We have identified and retrieved 40 million humans from scattered outposts. We have begun the process of awakening another 100 million from hibernation." He paused, letting the numbers sink in. "But we are not here to expand our territory at the expense of others. We are here to share what we have learned. The return fleet contains knowledge that spans thousands of years of human advancement. We are opening our archives to every species that wishes to learn. We are proposing joint research initiatives in medicine, engineering, agriculture, and philosophy. We believe that a galaxy where humans are fully participating is a better galaxy for everyone." The vote was nearly unanimous. Only the Vexian Council member abstained, a sign of protest but not outright hostility. Even Torvin's political power was fading, replaced by younger Vexians who understood that cooperation was more profitable than conflict. Years passed. The galaxy transformed. Human culture merged with alien cultures, creating something new and vibrant. Human technology was integrated with Krellian engineering to create better systems. Human medical knowledge combined with Theran biology to cure diseases that had plagued the galaxy for centuries. Susan Hayes eventually stepped down as admiral, passing command to a younger generation of human military leaders. She spent her final years working on a book about the return, about why humans had survived when everyone thought they were extinct. She concluded that humans had survived because they had something within them that could not be broken by distance or time or neglect. They survived because they understood that existence itself was valuable, that the future was worth fighting for, that even scattered remnants of a species could reclaim greatness. Lisa stood on the observation platform of the New Earth Station, orbiting the restored planet that had been forgotten for 300 years. Below her, she could see forests regrowing, waters clearing, the planet slowly healing from the centuries of abandonment. The platform itself was filled with humans and aliens walking together, working together, building the future together. She thought about the Vexian merchant Torvin, who had bet that humans would be extinct in 10 years. He had lost that bet. Humanity had not faded away like dying stars. Instead, it had returned with strength, with knowledge, with the determination to reshape the galaxy itself. The future of humanity was no longer in doubt. It was written in the stars themselves, in the millions of humans spreading across the galaxy once again. No longer forgotten, no longer abandoned, no longer helpless. The galaxy had finally learned to remember that humans existed. And in remembering, it had learned something about itself. It had learned that the greatest civilizations were built not on conquest, but on cooperation. Not on fear, but on hope. Not on weapons, but on knowledge and creativity and the simple human belief that tomorrow could be better than today. The return fleet had come home, and the galaxy would never be the same.